Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us at our CCWH Friday evening chapel service. I am Reverend Mary Huber, pastor of the chapel. CCWH stands for the Community Center of Holistic Healing. Founded in 1977 by a mystic and channel, Reverend Michelle Luson, and she was asked by Spirit to establish it here in the Washington, D.C. area to bring more light to the nation's capital so that we can be assured that the work of the higher spiritual creative forces will be able to bring into the United States the divine plan for humanity for the next millennium. CCWH is a nonprofit, metaphysical, non-denominational spiritual fellowship. Our mission is to aid personal and global spiritual transformation. We currently have online chapel services twice a month on Friday evenings, which can be viewed on our Facebook site. In addition, we have weekly Thursday evening prayers for peace by phone conference. We begin each gathering with a group recitation of the 3 affirmations known as the 3 healers. These were given to Reverend Luson by Spirit when the church was established. They are located on our website under a pull-down menu at the top right entitled Get Involved. So those who know the 3 healers might recite it with me at home. The faith affirmation. I believe in the spiritual existence of myself as a perfect image of the divine creator. In this reflection that is my physical embodiment, I have faith in the supreme guidance of my soul for my balance, my needs, and my opportunities. Outside of myself, there are also perfect images, and nothing can delude my thinking otherwise. Hope affirmation. Acknowledging my faith in the omnipresence of my divinity, I hope for realization, awareness, and acknowledgement of the existence of the great I am within myself. Charity affirmation. In understanding faith, in knowing hope, I pledge my actions, my desires, and my thoughts to the performances of myself on the physical planes of the earth, to honor, to love, and to enlighten all that is a reflection of the divine outside myself, so that my perfection is imaged back to my Creator. So help me God. Here I would like to include a prayer to the angel of restoration and renewal. And this comes to me through Patricia Cota-Robles' material, which I obtained when I was at one of the day conferences she held locally. As this is recited to you, you might close your eyes and image this great angelic presence spreading a canopy of light over all of our country. Mighty angel of renewal and restoration, in grateful humility, I acknowledge your presence in the universe and the tremendous service you are rendering to planet Earth and her evolutions. I thank you for sustaining a canopy of light over Washington, D.C., and the governments of the United States at national, state, and local levels. I now offer you the cup of my consciousness and the good of my causal body to help you expand and sustain this canopy of light over the foci of government for all the countries of the world. I ask you to seal all governments on the planet within a constant outpouring of your 5th dimensional crystalline solar flame of renewal and restoration. until all life is purified, restored, renewed, and manifesting God's plan for divine government on this new earth. This is destined to be a government of the I Am presence of humanity, by the I Am presence of humanity, for the I Am presence of humanity. A government based on oneness, divine love, and reverence for all life. I consecrate and dedicate my heart flame to be the open door through which the purifying process of this sacred fire will constantly flow to restore all life evolving on this sweet earth into God's infinite perfection. And so it is, beloved I Am. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce our speaker for this evening. I know you will enjoy this topic.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our CCWH chapel service on post-election reflections. Tonight, I have the distinct honor to introduce Reverend Gloria Cousar, who will be discussing the historic events that are occurring and the historic times that we are not just honored to be witnessing, but we're active participants in this critical time of our history, not only for the United States, but for the world and humanity as a whole. So if you were thinking this would be covering election results, think again. That is not the case, but I hope this information is even more valuable and is from a much higher perspective. So let's start with a little of Gloria's background. Some of you may not know that Gloria was one of the first two ordained ministers by our founder and pastor, Reverend Michelle Luson. And she also held the role of pastor of CCWH, teaching and performing spiritual healing for 6 years after our founder, Michelle, retired. Gloria has also held senior positions within the United States federal government, where she was the acting assistant secretary and deputy assistant secretary of the Department of Housing and Urban Development, otherwise known as HUD. Her work focused on addressing housing needs among the nation's poor and building strong communities all over this country. At HUD, she served as both a political appointee and as a civil servant under 5 different presidential administrations, both Democratic and Republican. From Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan, Bill Clinton, and both Bush presidents, beginning in 1977 until mid-2002, when she retired from the government. Since then, she's worked as an entrepreneur and consultant to help empower the poor living in public and assisted housing to develop leadership and achieve housing equity. She is a long-standing light worker within the CCWH spiritual community that is based in the suburbs of the nation's capital. We're delighted to interview Gloria regarding the national election that is occurring during a global pandemic, a cosmic shift, a planetary reboot, and the startup of the Aquarian Age, the galactic cycle that will last for the next 2,000 years. Welcome, Reverend Gloria Cousar, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Brenda. I'm pleased to be here.
Great. So let's get to some important questions, shall we? Question 1. The timing of the U.S. presidential election seems to coincide with several important transitions that are happening on many levels. Can you give us some context around what is happening at this particular point in our history?
Yes, Brenda, I'm going to try to do this in a way that is not as technical, but hopefully understood in a general way. As a member of CCWH, I learned from Michelle and the source that she channeled that our Creator has a divine plan that includes this planet and all of humanity, and that each of us has a spiritual purpose for our existence in line with that plan, whether or not we live and behave in line with that plan or in alignment with that plan is entirely up to us because we have free will. Now think of our nation collectively as a unified body having a spiritual purpose, and that the election is an opportunity for us as citizens to freely choose our leaders who can act on our behalf or not, depending upon their persuasions and our intentions. We live in what most people recognize as time and space. We call it the 3D. Most of everything we think of in the past has occurred within that 3D. But presently, the energy of 3D is shifting into a higher frequency of reality that is multi-dimensional. Call it 5D. The energy of 3D is shifting, and the energy of 5D is pulling us into another direction. The pull of 5D is speeding up and transforming all of life on the planet at a very rapid rate. Mundanely or externally, we hear people talk about 5G, and that's not coincidental. Many light workers refer to this as a cosmic shift, because not only is it happening on Earth, this shift is affecting our entire solar system, in fact, affecting the entire galaxy in which our solar system exists, and the cosmos in which the galaxies exist. So this is pretty broad. I won't bog us down with the technicalities and the measurements of all this, but there are cycles within cycles within cycles that are going on and have aligned at this point in time. So some say that we won't come to this place or a point in time, if time continues, like this in more than what might be 1 million years. Now the speed or the vibrational frequency at which life is occurring continues to accelerate and is being felt mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, and is having an effect on the consciousness or the awareness of all humanity, individually and collectively. That impetus is causing us to become more expansive. It's pushing us to elevate, go higher in its effect. And as this occurs, our past beliefs and our societal structures based on duality concepts may no longer comport with present day reality or what we interpret as the truth, and are thereby becoming obsolete. This impetus and this transition into higher consciousness in humanity is being referred to as the ascension process, or as we called it in CCWH, the spiritual awakening on a global or mass basis.
Wow.
And with this mass spiritual awakening is coming in the new earth energies that are pulling us in the direction of the 5D or the fifth dimension.
Wow. So what are your thoughts about how these planetary, cosmic, and universal shifts affect the spiritual awakening on this planet and how that affects humanity's evolution?
Well, our perceptions are changing. Our perceptions are broadening and transforming with regard to some of the previous narratives or the previous assertions, even in science. You know, people are now questioning the findings of Darwin to say that life is about survival of the fittest, and therefore dog eat dog is the rule. People are questioning these things because they're perceiving it in different ways. I point to the work of someone like Greg Braden, who says we need a new story of humanity that doesn't purport to have us function in a dog-eat-dog way, but more as part of nature to cooperate and collaborate in order to progress and evolve and be assured of our survival. So other ideas that are unfolding with this new energy is a focus on human rights, on equality and the oneness of life, on animal rights, awareness of how much waste is occurring in the world, and how much pollution has been created. Before, we weren't paying a whole lot of attention to those sorts of things or concerned about the impacts that they were having on the rest of society or even on the earth itself.
Right.
So evolution implies new capacities and ongoing development of the human species. And the practice of greater compassion implies more stimulation of the heart chakra and not just rational decision making, determining how we behave and how we act without regard to the suffering that it may cause. So we're some people say we're softening up. We may be softening up, but we are more caring about what is being done to the planet, what is being done to other people in the name of survival or in the name of progress. And that's being felt all around the planet. So I'll leave it at that for the next question.
Okay, so how does vibration and frequency relate to higher levels of consciousness?
Well, I mentioned that things seem to be speeding up, and probably today was a good example of it. That sense of speeding up is a function of an accelerated vibration, if you will, in the energy of reality. Everything is vibration, according to what we now know from science. Even though we have physical bodies and we deal with still largely the 3D existence, science tells us that all of that is vibration, that there is space between those molecules and those atoms, and that they are not solid, or we are not as solid in this form as we would think we are. So the speeding up and the acceleration of our vibrations will be felt on the physical level, will be felt on the emotional level. and the mental level. And sometimes in ways that people have difficulty coping with, acting out what they feel but can't make sense of because they don't have the understanding of what's going on. And we are becoming more sensitive to these energies and these forces. So being able to go to a higher vibration by choice and through practice may assist us in being able to flow with the change in the transformation in our world that's taking place.
You
Higher
mentioned
consciousness used to be talked about in the past as something only swamis and yogis and people who spend hours and hours in meditation could accomplish. We have moved past that. We have moved past that.
that's great. Yeah, it sounds to me like there's light at the end of the tunnel with what you mentioned about compassion and cooperation, more focus there to work together to help our planet and help each other. And it sounds like there's actually potential and possibility for world peace. Is that where we're going? And could that actually happen in your opinion?
Well, I think it's going to happen, and on some levels it has happened. However, we must put in the work. we must make the choices, and again, free choice as a function of free choice for that to come about. We do more and more exercises to try to bring about peace on the planet and peace within ourselves. CCWH has the weekly peace meditations, and so many other groups are doing the same thing right now. It is not accidental, and the awareness, because of the acceleration of consciousness, we are more aware of the violence within our world and within our society, and the conflict within our world, because it's apparent to us that these are functions of duality consciousness, pitting one against the other, and putting the emphasis upon how different we are, and the desire for separation as opposed to unity. That has been traced here in America with such things as following the Civil War, the separation of the races, and laws that were incorporated for segregation up until the time that the Civil Rights Movement came along and helped to change the consciousness of the nation to where there's recognition that it was harmful, and recognition that we are one people, we are one humanity.
Yeah.
We still have work to do for that to be embraced by people universally, but we have come further than where we were. And therefore, it's important that we continue. But now that things are speeding up, is not going to be any longer useful or helpful to the planet for us to continue down these dualistic modes, these in structures, functioning in societal structures that create inequality, that produce disharmony, and that operate to break up the unity of the country. And we're seeing that now with the political parties. They're I don't know, if you could put boxing gloves on them, you could see them in the ring fighting one another, and down to the last ounce. And my observation about that is, some of the side effects are quite toxic, quite negative. It has driven the political system to place an emphasis on money and not the will of the people. That even now, at the 10th hour before the election starts, folks are still asking for money. And in many instances, when in the past, as people were elected to office, the first thing they'd start doing is setting up their fundraising campaign, as opposed to focusing in on enacting legislation that people have been asking for and that is needed to improve our society and improve the conditions of people who are not being served as a part of the society in the ways that they should. I would suggest that people might want to take in something that's being shown right now on HBO, a documentary called The Soul of America. And it's being produced with a gentleman who used to be the editor of Newsweek magazine. And this is based upon the book that he's written called Soul of America. And in it, he describes the soul of the country as its essence, just like our soul is our spiritual essence. Mm-hmm. And he says, it's our essence as a country is shaped by whether or not we are honoring the better angels of our nature, or we are succumbing to the negative influences with regard to whose version of America will emerge. And that's pretty much what we might consider with this election that's occurring. Everybody wants to know who's going to win. Well, in some ways, it doesn't matter too much which one is going to win, because we're still going through this transformation. And we're still, operating in a dualistic mode in the way that the election is being conducted. When I lived outside the country, I was always struck by the notion that I felt more American outside of the United States than I did on the inside.
Interesting.
And that was because those who were outside from other countries couldn't figure out why we had such sparring between the two parties, when to them they were very similar in what they were arguing for, and that the policies weren't that much different to them. And yet, when I was inside the country, I felt this divisiveness, this polarization.
I think we're all feeling it right now. Yes,
we are. And it has increased, yes, if you will. But that is because we are in the energy of the shift, which is pushing for change, which is making apparent the obsolescence of these ideas and stimulating us to move into higher consciousness.
And that need for change. Mm-hmm. So what can we do to support the collective transformation on a global perspective? And what can we do on a personal level to facilitate our own personal ascension process?
Well, change really begins at the grassroots level. We used to have a saying about transformation happening personally and locally as well as globally. And one of the lessons that I learned from the source was that as we treat people who are representative or who have roots in other parts of the world, it's almost like a reflexology treatment that reverberates back, resonates back to those parts of the world where those people emanate from. And so it doesn't have to be that we have to travel abroad or we have to go to the United Nations. It's part of how we relate and interact with people on a daily basis. Are we practicing love? Are we practicing brotherhood and sisterhood? Or are we pushing back because we don't believe that we should have immigration any longer? You know, the principles that we can practice are really quite simply a few that would take us a long way in this direction. And I was told this as I was entering into federal service, that the most important principles get to be harmony, get to be unity, get to be balance, get to be oneness, and equal rights. Harmony, unity, balance, and peace, and equal rights or equality. That these can be a barometer on many levels. And I say that to say, when people are choosing who they're going to vote for, well, make that your yardstick. Which of the candidates are going to, in your opinion, bring us closer to a state of harmony, unity, balance, peace, and equality? And then make your choice. That is a different way than simply which party or do you belong to. We at some point we need to stop demonizing one another and stop condemning those who have different views than what we have, because that only perpetuates the lower consciousness, the consciousness of hatred and aggression.
Yeah.
So where wherever you are, you can contribute to peace in the world. Our Thursday evening peace meditations, or on a daily basis. But it first begins within the self.
So thank you for that. Okay, so what can we do and how can we learn how to access that higher level of consciousness?
Well, what we refer to as the higher self, because we are much more than these personalities walking around in flesh and blood. Many religions tell us we are eternal souls, that when this goes away, we are still evolving and we are still having life experiences, not just on this planet, but perhaps elsewhere in the world. So how do we come to an understanding and a realization of our totality as spirits having a human experience? Well, in CCWH, we have engaged in training people in different practices, different spiritual disciplines that would enable them to go more deeply within. As in Christianity, it's termed the kingdom of God is within, and you can find parallels in other religious paths. But the idea of meditating, contemplation, some people call it contemplation as opposed to meditation. But learning how to do that and learning how to go into the deeper levels with that is where you can hear the voice of your God, where you can come in contact with spirit and the higher self. And more and more we are hearing people speak about the higher self, because that is the part of us that is never separated from God, to call upon the higher self daily for guidance and for direction. So meditation is one way, daily prayer is another way to help us elevate our consciousness, because it is at that higher consciousness that we can be in contact, that we can activate those spiritual gifts that are a part of our makeup that can only be activated when we operate at a higher frequency, at a higher vibration. So listening to your intuition and learning how to develop your intuition is another way. Saying yes to change, because things are going to be changing a lot. Working on becoming more loving. You know, we sometimes forget when we're in the midst of the flow of the day to be kind, to be nice to people, to instead of complaining, come at trying to get what you want. They say using honey instead of vinegar.
Absolutely.
It just takes a moment to switch your direction. Keeping a journal, writing down your thoughts daily, and asking Spirit to speak to you through those thoughts. Looking at what are your personal standards? What are your ideals? What are your principles? Do you have some? And are you living up to them? Stepping out of our ego self, because it's our ego that's been conditioned to be in the dog-eat-dog world.
Yeah.
It's our ego. And I'm not saying the ego is totally negative. No, there's a certain amount of ego that's necessary to move through the world, but it is our ego that has allowed us to marginalize people. It's our ego that has allowed us to look the other way when people are being mistreated. And I could go on, but I want to say we can get closer to the God within by changing our focus. I use some practices that I've learned through CCWH and other places or from spiritual teachers, such as using the pendulum. I'm in architecture and urban planning, so I like pendulums. I actually collect pendulums, but I found that I can use a pendulum to change my vibration, to change the energy field that I'm functioning in, to go higher, to make contact with my higher self. And that's easily learned. There's lots of information if people are curious about that as to how to make use of a pendulum.
You mentioned before to me about song and sound, and that relates to frequency and vibration as well. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, I recently had come across some information because I'm not a singer, really. I like music, I like song, I try to sing, but I'm not what you would say stage ready.
Me either.
But
no worries.
In looking at the whole question of frequencies and changing of frequencies, I came across a book written by a man named Jonathan Goldman, who is a musician and I think a Grammy-nominated musician, who had a spiritual experience in which he encountered what he called the angel of song. And the angel of song became his guide and helped him to produce and develop music that would help raise his consciousness and raise the consciousness of other people who listen to it.
Wow.
Another area that he learned with the angel of song was the use of the Tibetan bowls, which I know some of us in CCWH and other metaphysical traditions have been exposed to. And the Tibetan bowls or you can find them at jewelry shows or metaphysical shops. And just the clanging or the hitting of the Tibetan bowls sends out a vibration that can be felt not only physically, but in our actual aura. And so I play with the Tibetan bowls. We have a member, Beverly Nickerson, her son, who has grown up with CCWH, is now a very proficient practitioner of the Tibetan bowls that are made out of metal, but also out of crystal, the crystal bowl experiences. And there are healers who are now using the Tibetan bowls and tuning forks for the vibration of sound to help facilitate the healing process. There is a physician that I came across, there's a doctor, he wrote a book called The Healing Power of Sound, Dr. Mitchell Gaynor. And he's an oncologist, and he has found that by combining sound with his treatments, that people have sped up into their healing process, and that he's actually witnessed some miracle recoveries, having added sound to what traditional medicine techniques and treatments he's been able to administer.
That's amazing. Can you give us a short demonstration of the Tibetan bowls?
Well, I'd have to go back and get one off the shelf. Maybe towards the end, I'll bring that back up, okay?
Okay, great. Thank you. So what are some other aids that we can use to lift our vibration and promote positivity during these trying and stressful times?
Well, other things that we teach within CCWH is one, we teach about creative wellness, taking care of your body in the right way, learning the strengths and weaknesses of your form and of your attitudes, to be aware of when you might be off center and when you are operating from a positive framework. Creative wellness includes exercises, it includes nutrition, fragrances and scents that are natural supports, flower essences, and flower essences have come a really long way because all of us are subject to negative mental attitudes from time to time, whether they stem from our own behavior or from the behavior of people around us that we get triggered. And it is the flower essences that are the antidotes that God has placed in nature to be able to help us interrupt those negative frequencies so that we can bring about more positive ones. Taking walks in nature and just unplugging from your routine in order to hear the divine. Those are necessary things now to give us inner peace, because we can't get there unless we begin to reach for inner peace. There are many things. What we wear, energy, color is energy. What are the colors that are supporting us? The mineral kingdom, the stones, the healing properties of nature are abound in the mineral kingdom, and those of us who are metaphysicians, we make use of the stones and crystals and combine those with some of the other practices, such as meditation and healing.
Mm-hmm.
And more are being disclosed now. You can, when we started off, there was very little. And
there's so many things.
Sort of look at you sideways for some of the things that you did, but not any longer.
Right.
The internet is full of instruction. The internet is full of websites that one can go to. The thing is to practice, to try out what speaks to you. Try out what, as we say with vibration, what resonates with you. Not necessarily intellectually, but from a feeling standpoint. What makes your heart sing? What makes you happy? Do more of this. You don't have friends, make friends. These are things that get to raise your vibration. It's not complicated, but as we are going through these changes in the external world, we are also changing internally. And we are evolving, and we are going to be in a different place. When I looked at what Meacham was talking about in The Soul of America, he was saying how, 100 years ago, America didn't look like it looks today. Amazing changes took place. And I would hope it won't take 100 years, but maybe even 5 or 10 years from now, we will begin to see corrections to the mistakes that we have made that are because of the limited consciousness that we have operated within.
And the sooner the better. What strikes me is how we're all in this together. We're all going through this pandemic. We're all feeling many of the same feelings, just in maybe different degrees and from different perspectives or from different reasons, like fear, anxiety, shock, grief, denial. All of those emotions. As humans, we all have these feelings. And I hope that can help us to recognize that we're all in the same boat, and it may help us move towards unity. What do you think about that?
What's happening is bigger than we are. We're used to thinking as human beings that we can control everything. We don't. Everything is going through the ascension. And so we may as well let go and let God direct us. But first we have to learn how to make contact with the God within. So yes, we're going to get cranky because we have some parts of us that need to change. We have some attitudes we might need to get rid of, or some beliefs that are obsolete and no longer serve us. And particularly if we hope to move forward and live in the world that is going to change, that is going to be better, that is going to be healthier for children to grow up in, and for society to address the needs for abundance of all of the people and not just the rich, to not marginalize people who are different because they look differently than us, or they speak a different language, or they're of a different persuasion than we are, or they choose to love somebody who's different. We can get ready for that by being willing to change. And we're in the thyroid vortex here in Washington, D.C., but the thyroid vortex is a chakra of the world body. So what we do here from the standpoint of our will and our choices affects life everywhere. And so let us learn how to choose responsibly, choose differently, choose life affirming possibilities and outcomes and behaviors, starting with self and working outward.
Thank you for that very important point. And you make a good case for us to get to work or get back to work on ourselves, to let go of that ego and the selfish habits instead of looking towards optimism and positivity. And whatever supports that higher vibrational frequency and a more holistic approach or remedy. many of which that you've mentioned don't cost money or take a lot of time, just focus, discipline, and a desire to evolve and take good care of ourselves and others. Thank you so much, Gloria. This has been a timely discussion about relevant events that are critical for humanity to ascend to a higher level, and for sharing perspectives and recommendations to raise our vibrational frequency so we can access consciousness directly for ourselves and receive the wisdom needed to navigate through this difficult time while we, the Earth, our solar system, the cosmos, and the entire universe transition into this profound new phase. We're entering an era of peace within ourselves, if we choose to, as well as an era of peace for our world and for our planet. How long this transition lasts is up to us individually to connect and contribute our energy and raise our vibration as much as we can. On the home front, it's important to note that no matter what the election outcome, the important part is that people voted. We had the highest turnout in history, and we want to highlight that this is what our democracy relies on to work.
If I could just give a footnote on that point.
Sure.
Voting, participating is important because it is adding not only to the count in the aftermath of an election, but it is adding to the collective consciousness of the world when we choose from that perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that is what is changing ultimately. We may go through another election in the old energy. We've got to be prepared for that. But if we are working to change ourselves, we will be ready to move past that.
Great. Yeah, it relies on all of the people in a democracy, and that we can contribute to the higher level. But we need to be involved in the process, involved in identifying the issues, involved in the solutions. Going about solving the problems the same way will only yield the same divisive result. The goal is restoration of the power to the people that the government represents. The more we're involved, voting, writing to Congress, peacefully protesting outdated or unfair laws, the more power is given back to the people and their voices counted. The subtle and not so subtle attempts to suppress the power of the people cannot be tolerated for the democratic system to work. We are the fourth leg of government. Everyone focuses mostly on the three branches of government, the judicial, legislative, and the executive branches, where we have all our court systems, Congress, and the president. But we are the people. We complete the foursquare, the solid foundation with all four corners to build upon. With everyone represented, a larger diverse base can be restored with this current push for equality. Whichever side you may see yourself on, remember, we're not really red or blue states. We all live in purple states. There are voters on both sides, in all states. We are a mixture. We are the melting pot. And until we unify our efforts and work together for the common good of all the people, we will keep creating the same problems for ourselves, for our country, and our planet. The good news is that we have an influx of help right now from Spirit to shift the tide, to shift the error of our ways. We have all the support we need. We just need to be the boots on the ground, doing that internal work, making the effort every day to connect to consciousness, where it will become loud and clear for everyone to turn from that selfish, ego-based thoughts, actions, and deeds to actions based in love, compassion, and cooperation. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in with CCWH tonight, and God bless you for sharing your love and light. And thank you, Gloria.
You're most welcome. Peace and love to everybody.
Amen. This meditation is from Washala Sananda, and she asks us to align with our highest truth and know ourselves as divine love and light. We are moving into ascended dimensions. Feel it, enjoy it, share it. So let's sit straight, take a deep, relaxing breath, and then another. We're going to journey into infinity and expansion and back. Take another deep breath. And just open your heart to receive this transmission. There is an experience beyond time and space where all creation exists as the essence of being. Call it God, the universe, infinity, divine light, unity consciousness. None of these terms begin to describe the experience of being it. Infinite expansion in every direction, and no direction as directions cease to exist. Pure, brilliant, white, lightless light, expanding to a point that surpasses expansion. The deepest connection to all things that becomes no thing, as nothing is anything other than the essence of being. Everything is known And there is nothing to know at the point of inclusion, where all is one. There is only being. I expand out to include all consciousness until consciousness is no longer a separate idea, but an infinite inclusion to the point of omniscience. Beyond omniscience is simply and profoundly being, being, being. In this place, there is no I am. There is no I. There is only beingness. Infinite being. Pure consciousness. Total awareness. Stillness that contains every movement ever moved. The emotion that holds every feeling ever felt. Completeness, totality, wholeness, singularity, and then movement becomes explosive expansion in every direction of every dimension, the birth of dimension. Awareness becomes deliciously insatiable curiosity that must know more. Nothing becomes everything. A thought separates from the totality of consciousness. There becomes an awareness of I, as no time becomes all time. This is where I am is conceived. And the journey back to self begins again. I am. We all are. Feel and receive the essence of being into your heart. This is divine love. This is who you are in your core. Know yourself as worthy. Align to your soul's worth and know the truth of your infinite value beyond value. You are life. These words are minuscule compared to the energetic transmission that is encoded within them. Yet I know that part of you will understand what I have shared here, because it is the truth of being. We are infinite expansion. The essence of being. I am. I love you. I honor the divinity in you. When you're ready, you can come back to your body. Take a deep breath. Move your hands, wiggle your toes. Take another deep breath and open your eyes.
Here you can send healing to another. Bring into your mind someone who needs your help, be it a family member, a friend, or someone in the community who could use help now, be it mentally, emotionally, spiritually, or physically. Now that you have brought them into your mind, surround them with light in however you can envision them. Be a spotlight, be it the sun behind them, be it a cloud of light around them. And now we will do an affirmation that will send healing to them. Father, Mother, Creator, Universal Spirit, I acknowledge your capability to be the light and power for healing, and here you put your friend's name, who is in need. Your light is the creative force of life. Your love is the creative bonding of that force, and your action, the healing itself. I place now in your light and love myself as a physical instrument to bring health to this individual according to your higher design for them. I further acknowledge that through faith, healing comes from you. Through hope, it is manifested. And through charity, the negativity that created the condition is permanently removed. Let this affirmation of absentee healing be permanent without reversal, so that the benevolence of your power be so manifested. So be it. Amen.
For 44 years, CCWH has been an amazing place for spiritual learning, growth, and value. We will continue to provide value that will enrich your spiritual journey. Donations big and small makes what we do possible. Please help us help you and others by making a donation today. Click here to visit ccwh.com. Thank you.
And now let us pray. Almighty Creator, we give thanks for our bountiful life living in freedom. You have surrounded us with light and love from on high, and we are eternally grateful. We ask that you continue to guide and protect us as we go forth to accomplish our spiritual mission, which was given to us for this lifetime. We give thanks for our health and prosperity, and for the loving relationships we enjoy. Bless those around us and around the world who are in need of upliftment, encouragement, and guidance, so they can see their spiritual path clearly, and that they can willingly join the lightworkers in their peacemaking efforts. We ask that all peacemakers are given your highest protection and guidance to create a new loving world under divine law in accordance with your will. We ask that the Holy Spirit descend now into the willing hearts and minds of people everywhere. May they be confirmed in the gifts of patience, fortitude, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, and endowed with generosity of spirit, which guides the loving heart. Raise up all of us in our day-to-day tasks, ensuring that our measure of light is sent out into the world in joy and praise. Bring hope to those who are faltering and afraid. Look after the children of the world, so they might see the divine plan in action in their own lives. Bless those who are the comforters, healers, and teachers to others. Protect our nation and guide us to see clearly the path to take, which will lead to the renewal and restoration of the original intent designed for the Constitution of the United States. Open the minds and hearts now of the people in the United States to see the highest purpose and design for this country, and have them able to acknowledge the great blessing bestowed upon them from Spirit that they are privileged to be here to follow that plan. Let the collective positive energy gather momentum and lift us into a new and finer world. Let the collective positive energy of each family surround those who are suffering and struggling and lift them into the fold of the Christ consciousness. Amen. Well, now at this time in our service, we would be conducting our collection, and we want you to know that we have been grateful for your past support, and we are hoping that you will continue to be generously supportive. This allows the church to continue to go on and meet our necessary expenses. please be as supportive as you can. There is a section on the website where you can go to donate. And while you're on the website, you can see there is a place for you to submit a prayer request for yourself or for a loved one, which will be on our permanent prayer list and will be in front of those healers and those who have promised to pray for that prayer list constantly. The schedule, by the way, is also for the upcoming service on the website in the calendar section. But here right now, I want to let you know that I am reaching out to spiritual healers to consider being part of our healing team here at CCWH. Our focus in this team is on the universal heart frequency of love and service. The concern and compassion of the Christ consciousness is always exemplified in the work of helping one another. And remembering love is patient, love is kind. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. So in the final analysis of life, we have faith, hope, and love are all that remain. But the greatest of these is love. So let's use that expression of love to bring aid and comfort to those who need it. If you want to join this healing team, send an email request to pastor@ccwh.com. Thank you so very much for your attendance. Please remember us in your prayers, because we do remember you in ours. So now we would end this with our closing circle, so you might creatively imagine us joining hands as we sing together, "Let There Be Peace on Earth."